Hello everybody, welcome back to the channel. For today I'm going to be talking to you about some of the remote working destinations that exist and why we're seeing like an increasing number of Brits, because this is an English channel and I'm based in the UK, kind of quit England stroke UK and head off abroad. That's if they work in a sector where they can work remotely. It's no secret that things are a bit tough in this country, massive government incompetence, basically, not just this government, but, the previous 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 or 6 or 7, it's generational, they've made the wrong policy decisions. We've had some disasters, everyone voted for Brexit and that obviously had a negative impact and we still haven't recovered from it yet, regardless of which way you voted. And then we had COVID, of course, and we're still paying for that, and that's got to be paid for, and there's sky high debt. We've got a, what's called a budget from hell. Coming on the 26th of November, Rachel Reeves, she's going to attempt to balance the books if she can. A sip of a coffee there. So look, because of the situation, and I think a lot of employers also are finding it difficult to, both recruit and retain the staff. It's ironic, really, because a lot of the job posts which you see advertised on Indeed, within a couple of months they're advertising again for the same job, which suggests that they can't hold on to their staff. These people are leaving for whatever reason. Maybe they're having too much pressure piled on them for not enough money, or maybe they found something better, or so. And it's a pattern I see a lot where an employer will perhaps advertise something, and then they'll kind of send out letters and emails saying you've been unsuccessful, and then literally within 6, 7, 8 weeks they're advertising again, same position, same company. So that means there's something kind of really wrong with, there must be something going on, because it's right across the board. All the employers they're advertising, they do the interviews. They let loads of people go, send them nice dear John type emails, and then they start somebody off, that person leaves, or they get disgruntled, or they find out it's not what they thought. And I do think that a lot of employers missell. You see, there's a saying, but it's not what you're told, it's what you're not told. And I've found this as well. Very often it's not, it's what you're not told. So my definition of that could be, you might have to report to somebody or work with a team or an individual, and you're not told about that at the interview, and you might not get on. You see, it could be anything. I'm literally just talking off the top of my head. So, a lot of these employers struggle to recruit and retain the staff, and once they've let go of 2 or 3 people in that area, it gets a bit tougher to find other people in that area, unless somebody's just moved to the area to take on the roles. Anyway, let's cut to the chase. I think you got a point with that. So people are moving abroad, and if you've got like a nice kind of remote work contract, so my definition of that is kind of £2,000 a month plus. Okay, so I don't think maybe with some destinations you could get away with 1,500 or something, but broadly speaking, I reckon you need £2,000 a month plus. If you're getting 2.5 grand, 3 grand a month every month on a contract, I think you're in a good spot, because there's lots of affordable destinations out there where people can get. I've actually been to some of them. I've worked from some of them. I've lived in some. Lived in some of them, and I've visited some others, and it's great. Because the lifestyle's different. I mean, I've been all over, but the countries I've actually lived and worked, this is obviously before Brexit. Spain is one. And I lived down in Andalusia, Cadiz. So I lived in the border town to Gibraltar, La Linea de la Concepción. Now that was a good laugh, because I was there for like quite some time. I did 2 stints of 9 months. So I did 9 months, and then I came back for a year and I did another 9 months. So I was there for like 18 months, and it's completely different to being there for 2 weeks or 3 weeks. I mean, a lot of British people go on holiday for 2 weeks a year, and yeah, okay, that might be the best they get, but it's not ideal, is it? I mean, if you think about if you're paying bills and working for 48 weeks of a year, or maybe more, and then you just kind of get 2 to 3 weeks holiday and maybe a week at home doing the DIY and touch-up jobs around the house, and in fact kind of spend a bit of time with the family. I mean, maybe it's not, I'm not saying it's bad, but maybe it's not the kind of aspirations and the dreams that everybody's looking for. So if you can get a kind of lifestyle where you've got the money coming in and you've got a definite guaranteed contract, and you can go and live and work in different places, or maybe, you know, navigate around the visa rules, maybe do 3 months in one, 3 months in another, and 6 months in another, and then repeat the process, you know. So there's plenty of options. So look, it was as I said, I've done Spain. I'm going to be reading off the list in a minute. So like, things with Spain is good infrastructure, good internet. I don't speak Spanish personally, but there's lots of English speakers there. In terms of a budget, they do a Spanish digital nomad visa. You need to be earning quite a bit for that. I will put all this in the description. In terms of how you could kind of get by, you know, in terms of living expenses and stuff, excluding rent, okay, you could probably get, I'm just talking about food and, you know, food, drink, that kind of stuff, you know, and maybe a small few sundry bills. You could maybe get by $500-600 a month, maybe, you know. That's not living it up, that's kind of just getting by, you know. The climate's warm. I mean, when I lived there, I did 2 stints of nine months each separately, and I was there for both winters, both times I went, and you know, it's 20-21 degrees in the winter, which is perfect, you know, if you're from the UK. I mean, you know, I mean, obviously the winters are getting milder, but you know, you got the blue sky, you got the atmosphere, the people are more friendly, you got the tapas bars. Coffee is £1. €1, I say, what's that, 90p, 95p, and the coffee's a lot better. And you can sit outside with the palm trees with your coffee. What I used to do for lunch, I used to go to a local tapas bar, and I used to get like tapas and a coffee for like €3.50, which back then was about £3, maybe $2.90, something like that. It's amazing. In the UK, you can barely buy a cup of coffee for that from Costa Coffee, and it's not even great coffee. Well, that's my personal opinion. So Spain's a great choice. You know, there's a lot of expats that go there. It's a short flight distance from the UK, 2 hours maximum, you know, maybe less depending on which part of Spain you go to. So that's a good choice. Next one was just Portugal, and I've been to Portugal as well. I've been down to the Faro, you know, down on the south coast, you know, near the Algarve they call it, you know. So I spent a bit of time down there, and I've also been to Lisbon, which is like the main kind of digital nomad remote working capital, you know. Lisbon's massive. I mean, it's also the capital city of Portugal. It's very modern. Well, it's a bit like a lot of these cities as an old part of a city and a modern part of a city. But it's got a metro, you know, it's got a highly, I'd say it's fairly modern. You know, quite a decent metro system, runs all around the city. When you get to the airport and the coast and the cruise terminal, various shopping malls dotted around the city, and you know, football stadiums and stuff. So it's, you know, there's a lot of, as you'd expect, there's a lot of infrastructure there, and that's really popular with the remote. Excuse me, I don't know where his cough's coming from. That's really popular with like the remote workers who come from all over Europe to work, but it's got like a quite a low cost of living. So, you know, for example, I mean, when I went to Lisbon, I was on holiday actually. I went for 2 weeks, and I took quite a bit of money with me, but I came back with quite a bit of money as well. So, you know, I didn't really spend much more than, I don't know, £800 on food and drink. You know, it's quite cheap to eat out, depending on where you go. So that's quite popular. In Spain, we do a digital nomad visa as well. A lot of these countries do nowadays, you know, because they want to get people who are earning money, not just from the UK, but from other countries, to go and live there, work from there, you know, and bring money into the economy and stuff. So, yeah, the cost of living there in Portugal is about £702 a month. Obviously, that won't include rent, but that's, you know, general cost of living, food, drink and stuff, you know, and a few socials per month, obviously. There's a lot of English speakers, you know. It's quite in Lisbon, it's quite a young demographic, so, you know, I mean, that's one thing that stood out for me. I mean, I'm not exactly young, but what I mean is it's not that many old age people. It's, you know, mainly people sort of 20, 30, 40, 50, quite a kind of hip, trendy, fashionable culture. I quite liked it, you know. And runs by the River Tagus. You know, and you can literally, there's a walkway, skateboard park, not park, skateboard way, and cycle way, and all the rest of it. And yeah, it's nice. It's a nice kind of lifestyle. You know, if you've got the money coming in from whoever whichever country you're from, but obviously I'm from the UK. If you've got the money coming in and you're kind of European or from a third country in the European Economic Area, you can get this digital nomad visa. There's a threshold for it, and it's different for every country what the threshold is, but I will put that in the description. One thing about Portugal is the climate's warm all year round, pretty much. Okay, so the next one on the list is Croatia. I've not been there, but that's increasingly popular with digital nomads. So I don't like the term digital nomads. I prefer the term like remote workers, or, you know, freelance digital marketer or something like that. Because digital nomad could be anything, right? It could be just somebody, you know, with kind of, you know, alternative lifestyle, sitting by the sea with a laptop, and, you know, it could be up to anything. So I don't actually like that term, but that is the kind of general term a lot of people use, you know. So yeah, so in Croatia you got a lot of historical sites. Cost of living £725 a month excluding accommodation. Tax exempt on foreign income for nomads. So that's probably for the first year, but I'll check that out. Estonia is the next one. So I've been to Latvia, not Estonia. It's probably a bit cold out there, to be honest, but, you know, still part of these experiences where people go for like 1 year to these places is you get thrust into a different kind of world, you know, where the people are different, the culture's different, the food's different, and as anybody would tell you, you know, you'll always find that certainly compared to here in Cornwall, where, you know, some of the villages where everyone's a bit kind of narrow-minded. I hate to say that, but it's true. You know, they're a bit insular and stuck in their ways, and maybe some of them are trapped in that kind of situation, you know, because you haven't travelled much, you're not working, you haven't got the money, you haven't got the confidence, you know, they've never been abroad before, that type of thing. But it does exist, you know, in the UK, where people are, you know, living in these little villages in a kind of a world of their own, and you haven't really seen the bigger picture or the bigger world, and it's pretty, I think it's sad, really. But anyway, so Estonia. Cost of living £820 a month excluding accommodation. Yeah, well, that's what it says here anyway. Highly digital and entrepreneurial environment. English widely spoken. Cold winters. Yeah, because that's true. Look, many years ago I had a Latvian girlfriend, and I went over to Latvia. I was living in the UK at the time, but I've been over there 3 or 4 times. And, you know, even if you go over there in like, what's called our autumn, you know, there's snow on the ground, and, you know, the sea freezes over. This was like, you know, 15, it might be different now, but this is like 15, 20 years ago, the sea froze over. You can actually walk on the very kind of shallow part of the sea which is frozen over, and there's loads of people doing it. I didn't think it was that safe, to be honest, but everyone was doing it. It's mad. But this was like 20 years ago, you know. So yeah, it gets really cold, and everyone walks around in these kind of, you know, thick jumpers and stuff. If you're going to go for somewhere like Estonia, you need to be prepared for a cold winter. Okay, so the next one on the list is Thailand. Now, I've been here a lot of times, actually, not for the reasons you think, but it's just an interesting country, you know. I've been it's probably the most visited country I've been to. It's just so interesting. Now, you know, the Thai baht is quite strong at the moment, and Central Bank of Thailand are doing everything they can to get the baht down so it doesn't affect tourism, but, you know, economically, especially in Bangkok, I mean, it's done miracles, you know, compared to what it was like 25 years ago. So many skyscrapers and modern attractions, and they're all air-conned, and, you know, modern BTS and MRT system and stuff. Now, you need a bit more money for that. If you know, so some people, if you can, in Thailand we do have a digital nomad visa. The threshold is quite high there, by the way. You know, it's not £1,000 a month. You need to be doing a lot more. I'll put all this in the description. But yeah, I mean, some people say Chiang Mai is probably the cheapest place for digital nomads in Thailand. It's in northern Thailand, not far from the border with Laos. I've not been there personally to Chiang Mai. But what it says here is cost of living £649 a month, again excluding accommodation. So large international nomad community, some language barriers. What about my language? Some language barriers, and yeah, I mean, look, Thailand's a really popular place where people are really friendly, and you know, I can say in recent years it's become a lot more crowded. You know, so it is a bit more crowded. It's a lot more crowded now than what it was when I first went. I think the first time I went was 2008, and when I went in 2009, I went in 2008, twice in 2009, 3 times in 2010. I went in 2011, then there's a big gap, and then I went again like in later years. But yeah, it's the same with all of these places. You know, people go, they spend a year there, they kind of, you know, see the place, meet some people, spend money, you know, learn a bit, you know, all the rest of it, and then perhaps the phase, you know, moves on, and they want to move, they fancy a change, they want to move on to something else. And you can relate back to the UK as well. You know, if you're living in a certain town or a certain village, you're probably sick to the teeth of it and just want to get on a plane or a cruise ship, you know, because things don't generally change, especially in the small villages in Cornwall. I mean, like I said, it's a tragedy, really. You know, there's a lot of people who've got, you know, different situations, different circumstances, and you know, they're literally just trapped, you know, in the village, without having that confidence and that international experience to know that beyond borders there's a better life. Does that make sense? So Thailand is quite a good choice, and the actual cost will depend on which part of Thailand you go to. You need to apply for the visa in advance. One of the most popular ones is, I've not been here yet, but it's on my radar, is Georgia. Basically, it's visa free for 1 year under the Remotely from Georgia program. So basically, if you are earning and you have a contract and you've got a bit of money behind you, I don't mean 10 grand, but you know, even like sort of, you could literally go over 3 or 4 grand. You can literally just rock up, because it's not the European Union. You're not subject to like a 90-day rule, which is right across the Schengen zone now, you know, including Gibraltar now as well. So you get 1 year, and you don't become tax resident until you spent 183 days there. So after 183 days, you become tax resident. But as I mentioned a moment ago, a lot of these people, they want like an extent, just try to describe it the best way I can. Maybe they want like an extended holiday. So it's not your normal type of holiday where they try and rush everything, cram everything into 2 weeks. Instead, you know, maybe they work 35 hours a week or 40 hours a week from home in the UK. Instead, they go to these places, they do the job, so that part doesn't change too much. But in their free time, in the evenings and at the weekends, or if you work 30 hours a week, it's even better. You know, where you got kind of the best part of 3 days off, pretty much. You have a brand new lifestyle, and you can get to mix with the locals and learn about the country in a way that you can't if you're just in a country for like 10 days or 2 weeks. You know, it's like every time I've been to these different countries, because I've travelled a lot, you always meet people who are on these 2 week holidays, and they're literally trying to pack and cram everything into like a 2 week itinerary, you know, and it's bonkers, you know. So basically, they're drinking too much, they're eating too much, they're doing too much. You know, they're out from sort of, you know, 8:30 in the morning, 9 o'clock in the morning till 3 a.m. They're literally just trying to pack everything in and burn themselves out, because they know they've only got such a short amount of time in that country. Whereas if you're there for like 6 months, you know, you can see everything in a much more orchestrated, logical, composed, genuine way, if that makes sense. And you can get to know the local people and, you know, learn something about the language and the different nuances and caveats and stuff. And that's what makes it a bit special. So look, getting back to Georgia, look, very low cost of living, 1% income tax under small business regime. Yeah, it's dirt cheap. We pay 20% here in the UK, even if you're earning, let's say, I don't know, 25 grand, you pay 20% tax on everything over 12,570. So that's really good. Easy bureaucracy, growing expat scene. I mean, I've watched some videos. Actually, you know, one guy who's been, I haven't spoken to him for a couple of years, but he went to Georgia, maybe 4 or 5 years ago, and he said it was great. You know, he was there for 2-3 weeks or something. You know, he really enjoyed it when he came back. I could tell that. And but look, since then, because that's obviously 5-6 years ago, there's loads of videos that have appeared on YouTube, and you know, it's got a good balance of, you know, urban, city, greenery, modern architecture, old town stroke city. You know, and there's from sort of March through to sort of mid-October, the weather's quite nice, a bit cold in winter, but maybe even snows at Christmas. But you know, as I said, people tend to go to these places, whichever country it is, and within a couple of months they'll know if they like it, and if they don't, they often move on somewhere else or come home. But yeah, I mean, for me personally, I really prefer you know, working in some of, you know, so you're working for a company in the UK, you're getting paid from the UK into a UK bank account, but you've got a lifestyle living abroad with a digital nomad visa. And I personally quite like that, you know, because you, as I mentioned, you can get to know the country and its people in a much better way than just trying to pack everything in on one of these crazy, wild 10-night holidays from Gatwick or something. So it's much better, you know. Next one, long haul, this one, Taiwan. So that's got a very big, growing, popular digital nomad scene. It's got a digital nomad visa as well. For 6 months, I think you get it for 6 months, and then you can get an extension on it or something. Low cost of living, or find out how cards believe, because Taiwan's very expensive. The accommodation is not cheap, so unless you're going to be living in like a hostel with like 12 bunk beds all stacked up against each other, you're probably looking at quite a lot for the accommodation. Maybe, you know, easily $1,000. I would say, from what I've seen on Airbnb, easily £1,000 a month, maybe more. You know, language barrier moderate, but urban areas friendly, safe and vibrant culture. I suppose the thing there is, you know, with this, you know, it's not a political video, but with like China kind of, you know, circling, wanting to take it back, there is that risk, you know, you could get caught up in something there, but yeah, it hasn't happened yet, and it may never happen, who knows. But Taiwan's quite popular, you know, it's very modern, great nightlife there. I mean, if you watch some of the videos, absolutely banging, you know, much better than anything here in the UK. So Latvia's on the list. Digital nomad visa available. Cost of living £696 a month, excluding accommodation. Quality of life is good. Some language barriers. Cold winters. Smaller social scenes. Yeah. I mean, Latvia is a city. It's a capital city of Latvia, but it's, you know, it's not. Yeah, the airport's quite modern, but it's you know, it's not London or Bangkok or Dubai. It's smaller scale. But you know, it depends what you want. You know, everyone wants different things. Some people like the sunshine, some people like the colder climate, some people like the modern infrastructure, and this is why it's good to kind of just do a bit of research and shop around and find out what's going to float your boat, you know. So Czech Republic, Prague is another top spot for remote working. Again, it's a digital nomad visa. Cost of living there is £817 a month, excluding accommodation. I've not been. I know some people who have said it was, you know, it's fairly cheap for, you know, going out, and but, you know, again, if you go to the main tourist areas, you're going to be paying more. So next one on the list is Malta. Again, I've not been here, but you know, when I lived in Gibs, a lot of the guys who worked in the gambling companies, you know, they would often get the chance to go and do 6 months or a year in Malta, and then maybe come back to Gibraltar or do a job swap or something. So that's quite popular. You know, I've not been, but I've watched some videos. It looks quite. It's an island, obviously. You know, quite rocky, you know, on the coast, but it's very pretty. You know, and from what I've seen, the infrastructure there is very good. Yeah, I mean, it doesn't list for, it just says moderate cost of living, but I can imagine, you know, it's not going to be that cheap. I mean, Malta's, you know, some of the buildings and the restaurants and the cafes and stuff, you know, quite upscale. So, I mean, what I'm saying is, £500 won't be enough. Do you see what I mean? Maybe you need to do some more research on that, or I will. There's a strong expat community in Malta, you know, it's not that far to fly to the UK. So there's a few kind of long haul destinations here, like Mexico, Playa del Carmen, Temporary resident visa includes digital nomad options, low cost of living, but you're paying more for the flight, you see. So once you start getting onto places like Thailand or Mexico or Vietnam, which is also on the list, Ho Chi Minh City. I have been to Ho Chi Minh City actually. I went there quite a few, many years ago, at least 10 years ago. I was in Bangkok at the time, and I got to go before it became super developed. But it was look, everything's an experience, because you can buy like a luxury car on hire purchase or a personal contract plan. You can take out loads of catalog loans and stuff, or you can get into a relationship via various apps or in person or whatever. But with travel, it's something that, even as you age, I mean, I wouldn't say I was that old, but even if you age, it's something that sticks with you, see? A bit like learning a language, even if you get older, you still got that. Do you see what I mean? So, I'm glad that I did a lot of these things and went to a lot of these places, because, when people start getting to, let's say, middle age, which is kind of where I am now, situations have changed. They've got partners, they've got kids, or their parents have passed, or whatever it might be. Or they've got some kind of illnesses themselves, or their confidence drops, or they're short of money, or they're out of work. It could be anything, and then they never get to do these things, you see. So, I'm always a bit careful about how I sort of judge, people who may be driving around in a £25,000 or £28,000 Discovery Jeep, or brand new electric car, or whatever it might be. I'm not saying we're not doing well, but do you see what I mean? If you think of life as like a cake, divide it up into different slices. You got the relationship, the job, the house, the car, your friends, your family, etc., and your health, and all the rest of it, and travel. Try and think of it like that. So if you can tick some of these things off your bucket list when you're a bit younger, I mean, obviously my life's not over yet. I'm nowhere even near the retirement age. But if you can try and tick some of these things off your bucket list, when you're a bit younger, it will give you a confidence to keep going when you reach middle age. So by that I mean like 40, 50, something like that. So, look, it's also true that once people do get a bit older, so around about my age group, the ones who've not really been anywhere, without kind of being harsh on them, they lose their confidence to sort of jump on a 12, 14-hour flight or whatever it might be, especially if they're going by themselves and they've never been before. They lose their confidence. So it's good to have that confidence. It's good to have that skill and that ability and that social confidence and believe in yourself, because if you've got that, okay, and if you can keep that going, and not to fall into this trap where you put on loads of weight and become so despondent with the way things are in the UK and stuff, you'll hopefully be able to keep that going do you get me? Funnily enough, I've been getting these, you'll probably kill me for this, my brother, he's gone on a trip to Italy, for 10 days, and I'm really happy for him, but basically, it's like some kind of sponsored drive, and I think there's 4 of them that went, and they kind of drove up to Dover and France, Switzerland, down through Italy, and I think they're probably there now, and they're driving all the way back the next 4 or 5 days. But the stuff you see along the way and the people you meet and the experiences you have, it's kind of it's certainly a confidence booster, but let's put it that way. And I bet there's not a lot of people who could do that, especially when you're driving. I mean, I've been to loads of countries. I'm not showing off. I'm just talking out loud. I think at the last count it was about 27. But what you have to remember is I've done it big time. I've done it on like an industrial scale. I did it when I was like a lot younger. And it's taught me a lot. It's taught me a lot about different cultures, and I've got many friends from different parts of the world, and not only on YouTube, but I came out the wrong way. What I mean is, on YouTube, I've got subscribers, let's say, from different parts of the world, India, Indonesia, and stuff like that. But I've got a lot of actual friends from different parts of the world as well, and not on YouTube, but maybe 10 of them are. But I've got a lot of friends from, maybe a few more. I've got a lot of friends from many different countries, and as a result of living there and living in these countries, and it's been great, you know, and it gives you a whole different perspective on life and stuff. Whereas if this is why I'd encourage people to maybe, you know, if you are in a bit of a rut, look at getting into something like digital marketing. I'll put some stuff in the description. You know, yet to type it all out and format and stuff. I'll put some stuff in the description with some links where you can learn some of the skills which might help you along that journey. Now, everyone's trying to jump on the bandwagon, so you do need to differentiate yourself and make sure you've got the right skill set and that's going to be fit for the AI age and stuff. You know, because a lot of things are changing now with AI. But look, just to kind of summarize, you know, if you can kind of just, you know, regardless of what age you are, you know, obviously if you're, you know, 60 plus, you know, maybe that's, you maybe you're past it all, but no, not past it all health-wise, but past, you know, living and working abroad and stuff. So yeah, if you can just kind of upskill, you know, and because things are pretty bad in the UK, I don't think it's going to get better anytime soon. But if you can kind of upskill and learn some new skills and look at spending a bit of time in some different countries and stuff. But the biggest thing that puts people off is fear, you know, because, you know, especially if they're not going with friends or if they're not going with a girlfriend or something or whatever it might be, then, you know, fear creeps in and they think they're going to be attacked by a lion or something, or Russian troops are going to parachute from the sky and, you know, frog march them over a border into Russia or something. You know, maybe it's a bit extreme, but you get the idea. So, you know, don't let fear put you off. I've spent a lot of time abroad, you know. Okay, a lot of it was done when I was younger. I spent quite a lot of time in Greece living and working. I spent a lot of time in Spain living and working. But I've visited many other countries, and it has shaped my personality. So you know, it's given me a better understanding of certain issues, you know. So if I speak to somebody in the UK who says XYZ country is no good, I wouldn't go there, they're all peasants. I know it's absolutely not true, you know. So yeah, definitely travel broadens the horizons, and you know, that's partly why I made the video. So okay, so I'll leave it there. I will put some of this stuff in the description. There's two more on the list here just before I go. So one's called Medellín, which is in Colombia. Now, again, that sounds dodgy, but I watched a video about Medellín well, a couple of months ago, and the nightlife is absolutely rocking. You just wouldn't believe it. You know, there's people from all over America and stuff like that there, and it's yeah, I mean, I certainly wouldn't mind visiting for you know, a week or so, just to kind of dip my toe in the water. But it's the flight, you see. So, low cost of living there, growing expatriates, seeing great weather, language barrier moderate. You know, it's like been a lot of places, to be honest. And the other one is Dubai. So yeah, Abu Dhabi, Dubai / Abu Dhabi. So 2 destinations within the UAE. I've been to Dubai, by the way. Yeah, not the cheapest place, but it's very expensive. You know, you can easily get through £100 without blinking an eye. You know, it's really expensive. So unless you're, you know, earning megabucks, I wouldn't recommend Dubai personally. You know, and this can be a bit strict depending on what kind of person you are and what kind of lifestyle you're looking for. It can be a bit strict. It's a very nice place. I've often flown Emirates when I've gone to the Far East, like, you know, Hong Kong, Australia, Bangkok, you know, because I've got a DXB, it's like the Emirates terminal in Dubai. And yeah, again, have a look online for yourself. You know, it's very modern, very international. And, you know, they have a whole terminal for like the A380s to dock there and stuff. And yeah, I absolutely love it. I mean, there's other good airlines as well, like Qatar and Etihad. But yeah. So well, I'll leave that there. There's tons of information here. What I'll do is I'll try and type it up in a way which is concise and factual and engaging and interesting, and I'll whack it all in the description for you. So thanks for listening, and I'll see you next time.